Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us once again. I hope all of you had a wonderful weekend. And starting out Monday, strong. Don't want to go into the work week, sluggish and feeling tired. Nope. You want to do it. Yeah. You want to do it as best you can every single day. Maybe. But at any rate, we hope that we can make the end of your workday a little bit better here on Computer America. And for everyone listening around the country, thank you for tuning in. So we have a great show planned for you today where we have a company called Beyond Security. That's right. And even though, Beyond Security kind of means something, past security, well, they do security. And we're going to talk to the CEO of the company all about how, how security works and the state of security today and just what it is that they do over there to really ensure that their customers and, by extension, everyone around the internet is, fighting to keep your data safe because there's a large contingent out there that is looking to steal your data and your files and really do harm to you. So it's great to have companies like these on to talk about this from time to time, and we are really looking forward to talking with, with Beyond Security. But before we get started with that, a few things we have to mention, including ComputerAmerica.com. That is the one-stop shop of everything for today's show, because we have the show notes, which have a link to our guest website, as well as any articles, videos, demonstrations, just anything and everything that we do here on the show today will be cataloged for the show notes. So if you happen to be exercising, if you are driving, if you're working, whatever it is you may be doing, don't worry about it. Head on over to our website and everything is right there for your convenience. While you're there, be sure to check out the live video stream because, hey, you can watch Computer America or you can listen to it. 2 different ways, and we are very proud of what we've done with the live video stream. And the last thing is, of course, our contest. Now, we just had a winner. We have contacted them. We have reached out to them. And, their prize should be on their way here shortly. But every single Friday, for those of you who do not know for any reason, we partner with Logitech to give away a really nice prize to a lucky listener every single Friday. We announce their name live on the air, and we could be calling your name. All you have to do, head on over to our website and feel free to enter. There's like 8 different ways to enter, and could be your name that we call this week. Okay, so with all of that said, why don't we just jump right into our interview today? And again, the company is called Beyond Security. You can find them, beyondsecurity.com. And joining us today, we have the CEO, Mr. Avi Jenik, and he's going to join us to tell us about what they do and really, the state of the industry, because they've been around for, if I'm reading this right, almost 20 years. And you can be darn sure that things have really developed and, gotten more sophisticated over time. So, welcome onto the show once again, Avi. Avi, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Good afternoon.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So, like I said, security, it's one of those things that I think as far as the general consumer, as far as a lot of people are concerned with security, it's something that you download on your computer, you pay $40 a year, and you never think of it again. And for businesses, it's, kind of the same way. You hire a company and you're done, everything falls on them. So, we can get into better, practices and things that you can do to kind of, help yourself. But is that kind of what you're here to talk about today, is just, buy the product, or are there, or does security, is security kind of a mindset more than it is a product that you buy off the shelf?
Yeah, so it used to be that you could pay $40 a month and just not worry about it, or outsource it, or just have someone just what we used to call buy security. You could just pay money, get security, and you're done, right? Just like electricity or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's pretty clear to all of us nowadays that it's not really the case anymore, right? I mean. There's a pretty good chance that just about everybody that's listening to you, whether they're a private person or a company, had some kind of security breach in recent years, right? So it's happening, and there's a lot of them. There's different types. You have to worry about your email security and your website security, and whether hackers will hack your webcam, or now there's ransomware. So there's a lot of different things to worry about. It has gotten a lot more complicated, and it's not as simple as buying a product and just using it as though it's you're buying milk or
Right.
Or internet, or something like that. It's definitely more complicated, I think. We do realize it now. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get a little bit of a background on you. How did you get into cybersecurity? Because and if I'm I'm not sure if you're the founder of the company, but for 20 years, that's it's kind of at the dawn of the personal computer. Only missed it by a couple of years. I mean, what's your background? What's Beyond Security's background? How have you guys developed over the years?
Yeah, so actually I am the founder, actually the co-founder of Beyond Security. I started it with my co-founder Noam Rethaus in 1999, and my background goes a little bit farther than that. I actually started. I was interested in security since I was a teenager, in computer security. Those were the really early days of computer security before the internet, in fact. But when I graduated high school, I actually went to start a startup. It wasn't called a startup back then. It was just called a software company. So I started a software company. It wasn't a security company. We did do really well, though. We end up selling the company to Microsoft. So that was a pretty nice exit.
Yeah.
And when I finished with that, I kind of thought, I had the money, right? So I thought, well, what do I really want to do for fun? And what I really want to do is security. That was my passion since I was really young. And since I could kind of choose what to do, I said, and luckily I talked my co-founder into it. We kind of thought, are we going to really develop another security product? There's so many security products out there. And then what the problem with security products is you develop a product, like it could be a firewall, an antivirus, whatever it is you hear about these days. And then a year or two later, somebody finds a way to hack it, right? So somebody finds a way to go around it, and then there's a new thing, and there's a new thing, and we said, well, do we really want to be like these guys that develop a product and then somebody finds a way to go around it? Why don't we go and be the guys that go around it? So if you remember, there was a really nice movie back in the 80s called Sneakers, about a group of computer specialists who do exactly that, who try to hack stuff, basically, right, or go around security systems. So that was kind of our model. And what we decided, that the twist we put on it was to not do it as people, as a service, but to develop products. So we thought, can we invent a product? Can we develop software that can automatically hack other softwares? So, because if we can do that, we can basically point out where your problems are. So rather than say, hey, here's this magic potion, right? You drink it and then you're healthy, right? That's the classic snake oil salesman, right?
Right.
We could say, hey, you know what? We're gonna diagnose you, and we're gonna tell you where your problems are, and then you can go out and get the treatment from whoever you want, but you'll know what is it you need to do. And that's what we did. I mean, I don't know if luckily or unluckily, but it turns out that in those 20 years, the security threats have really evolved, and the security world has grown, has exploded actually, which gave us, more and more and more things to do in terms of finding security holes. And this is kind of why we're beyond security. It's not typical, hey, talk to me, I'll give you something that's going to secure your system. It's more like, hey, why don't we take a step and let me tell you where your problems are, and then go get things to fix your problems, because there's a lot of those out there. And then I'll make sure that they do fix your problems. Okay, I can diagnose you again and make sure you're healthy.
It's making a lot of sense, and at the same time, we have had a lot of kind of security experts on the show, and I think one of the biggest ones, I mean, obviously a lot of the ones that we hear in the news lately, they are, people leaving documents in unsecure web servers, or they get hacked the good old-fashioned way with, just weak passwords and things like that. But I mean, your solution sounds pretty innovative, but at the same time, what does it take into account? Because, we've heard about things like social engineering. I don't think a program is going to be able to dress up in a suit and walk in the front door and hand a USB stick over. I mean, what does Beyond Security kind of look for? Does it look for, kind of open ports and, weak passwords and things like that? Or what are you really looking for?
Well, so that's a really good question, and your criticism is fair, because security is complicated and does have a lot of factors and a lot of different technologies, right? I mean, checking a car for security holes, because we know cars can be hacked today,
right?
Is not the same as checking your email servers for viruses, right? It's two totally different things in terms of the technology. So. So like I said, this is kind of where things got interesting for us, because we've got more and more things to cover. So I'll start with the end, or the conclusion,
sure.
And that is, no, we cannot do everything. We cannot completely test everything for every known threat. And social engineering is a good example. Computer programs, at least right now, do not do social engineering attacks really well. You need a human to do it. Pretty much, I want to say by definition, but those are the things that in 10 years, there's going to be a way to do it, and we're both going to ceiling, right?
They have those Facebook chat bots. I mean, all it takes is a chat bot, and then all of a sudden you're doing social engineering in an automated way. It could happen.
Exactly. I'll give you another example, but to answer your question, we do have a lot of different. It's basically a suite of tools, and we do have a lot of different technologies to test. And just to give you a few examples, we can test things like websites for websites vulnerabilities. We can check open ports and see what your server listens to and what kind of how it communicates. We can also check the source code. So if you're a developer and you're developing an app, and you're wondering, does my app has weaknesses? We can check that. And then just to give you a taste of kind of what's coming soon, we actually have the ability to find what we call unknown vulnerabilities. So we can take something like a car computer, and by doing an attack called black box testing, we can basically throw a lot of different attacks at it in the millions and billions of different. It's basically a sequential sort of a brute force attack on the computer to send in everything that we can and see, did we find a weakness, and using that we can actually trigger or discover unknown vulnerabilities that were not known before. So that's used by the manufacturers. And so there's a lot of different things to test when it comes to security testing. There's of course, we call those attack vectors. So there's different attack vectors, different ways to test. It also depends on you, because the first thing you have to ask yourself, I think in general, when you're talking about security, is who is your adversary? Who are you worried about? So are you worried about the NSA taking over your computer, or are you worried about a random attacker,
Right.
just to get in? So based on that, your test is going to be a little different. You're going to test for different components, and that's that's probably the first question you have to answer. Where we would like, I mean, ideally, I'd like to cover as much as possible. So I would like to be able to say, hey, if there's a way to hack into whatever it is you're holding, I would like to have our tool find that hacking method automatically, if possible.
I mean, part of this feels like obviously security and, hacking, they're two halves of the same coin, but part of this feels like that, you enjoy finding security flaws, and instead of going the criminal route, which is always fun, but not advised, instead of going the criminal route, you kind of went, well, let's make legitimate money off this and protect people before those criminals actually get to them. Because it seems like these tools, these suites, and, the products that you put out through Beyond Security are meant to, if you were on the other side of the fence, if you were looking to sell these vulnerabilities, then, you'd just be selling them to other people instead of back to the company itself and saying, hey, here's your problems. Part of this just feels like you are, a white hat hacker, kind of.
You got me. So it is, yes. So pretty much everything you said is true. It is more fun, and this is why we initially chose this route. Why we decided to do the attack thing instead of the defense, because it is it's nicer. It's I think it's more imaginative, right? You always have to be one step ahead, and to be honest, it's easier. It's always, I can always look at something and think, how can I break it? How can I hack it? How can I go in? It's a lot harder to say, well, how can I design something that cannot be hacked, or that's how to build a defense against it. It's probably kind of how we think. So my CTO and co-founder, if you show him something, then he will, if you show him a website, so you'll say, hey, look at this nice website, look at this service that came out. He's looking at it, and instead of how normal people will react, hey, look at what this can do, he will say, well, how can I get around it? What can I do that's unintentional?
That
right?
just happened. We didn't do the article, but I think it was like last Thursday or Wednesday or something like that. Windows came, Microsoft came out with like Windows 10s or whatever, and they said it's unhackable. It's perfect.
Right.
And the same day, they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, we got into it. We circumvented. I mean, like, nothing is unhackable, and you're right. Sometimes the best defense is indeed a good offense. So let's switch over and switch gears to something more general. I mean, like we said, individuals are one thing, large corporations, they're another completely. But a lot of the most vulnerable to cybersecurity threats are, small businesses, because they've said that if they, there's study after study, I'm sure you know them better than I do, but if they were to lose their data, if they were to be, subject to ransomware, they would just flat out go out of business. They can't pay to really have these big solutions. So what can they do to protect themselves as a small business?
Well, that's a good question. So I think the first thing that's important to say for small businesses is, let's dispel with the idea of things of those two extremes of unhackable on one side, as you said, and everything is hackable on the other side. So I don't like those two extremes. I don't like saying, here's my whatever I developed, it's unhackable, because come on, we know that's not, that's not true. But I also want to get away with the other thing of saying, well, you know what, everything's hackable, because especially for a small business, that kind of leads them into thinking, well, you know what, if everything's hackable, why should I even waste my time doing anything?
Why bother?
Right?
Yeah.
Why bother? So I think neither of those is true. As I said, the first thing a small business should realize is their adversary is probably not the NSA. So they are not they don't need to worry about the Russians going after their emails, right?
Right.
So what they need to worry about, and then on the other hand, they don't have unlimited money to protect against it. So what they need to find is the good middle ground, and a good middle ground is what are the main problems, the main security problems that I have, on my network or on in my servers. And what small business should do is try to try to do a quick assessment. There's a lot of tools out there. Ours is one, but there's others, and there's free tools and free services that are available for small businesses where you can do a check, basically a security check. And it will say, you know what, here are the main problems that you have on your machine. So if I'm an attacker, here's what I would do. You don't need to hire an expensive consultant. You don't need to go into this endless routine of let's start buying product. What you need to do is identify your weak points, and then there's when you start doing that, you'll realize one of a few things. You might realize that you do have a lot of weaknesses. That's okay. If you have a lot of weaknesses, do the 80-20. Just like we do, when we are a small business, we have to make these decisions all the time, right? What can I do? What are the, X amount of things, 3, 4, 5 things that I can do that'll have good impact on my security? Not everything. I'm not trying to get an A+ as a business in security. So that's one option. Another option might be, hey, maybe you're in great shape. We do tests. We offer this kind of tool. So we have a lot of small businesses running these scans on a daily or weekly basis. And some of them have a perfect score. Some of them are great. So again, a perfect score does not mean that if China wanted to target you, that they might be able to get in. But you know what? Probably a random hacker will not be able, and they'll go to another target. So you might find out that actually you're in a lot better shape than you thought. And then there's a lot of them that are in the middle. A lot of them have just 1 or 2 kind of critical issues, but that are simple to solve. Because if I can say, hey, you need to do a little more of this. Maybe you've got a SQL injection in this one script. Have your developer tweak it, protect against it. Or maybe you're missing the patch. Microsoft came out with a new patch and your server does not have it. Install the patch and you're done. So small businesses can actually do a lot. Yeah.
It's funny because, a lot of what you're saying, I mean, it really applies to the headlines that we've been hearing about. Just like your patch thing, we can talk about, I'm sure in a little bit, the recent WannaCry ransomware that hit the National Health Services in the UK.
Right.
But all that together, it sounds like you really subscribe to the idea that we've kind of pushed here on the show as well, which is, when you're being chased by sharks, you don't have to be the fastest swimmer. You just have to be faster than the person next to you. It's if you make yourself a little bit tougher to be compromised, if you make yourself a little bit tougher, the hackers really know that there are easier targets out there. Why waste the time unless you are, like you said, being targeted by China or NSA or Russia? Odds are a little bit is going to go a long, long way.
But, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And then let's also remember that these small businesses, their goal in life is not to have the best security. Their goal in life is to do whatever it is they're doing, right, as a business.
Right.
And security is an enabler for them to do that, not a goal by itself.
Right, absolutely. Because just a credit card company is not a security firm, but darn sure you want a secure credit card company. So, so things like that. But, sometimes you do have situations where the NSA, Russia, China, they are after you. And that's things like, the federal government. And just in the past year or two, I mean, of course, we're going to stay out of the politics right now. But just over the past year or two, there have been compromises such as, I think it was like 6 million federal workers had their social security numbers, their addresses, their names, all compromised. I mean, it's a serious problem. What is the impact of, today's malware on large organizations such as the federal government?
It's big. It's big, and it is a problem. But I think we can put those in two different categories. So one problem, and you mentioned WannaCry. So WannaCry as a case study, is WannaCry is a problem with an existing solution. It's like it's something like polio. We have a vaccination against WannaCry. We know exactly how to solve the problem that the WannaCry malware was using to get into computers. So you've got to ask yourselves, why didn't those federal agencies and public entities that got hit, how can they get hit by a malware, which we know there's a problem for, the solution for? And the solution is, by the way, if it's not clear, the solution is free and easy. It's a patch by Microsoft. All you had to do is go to the website, download the patch. That patch was available for months. And what happened there? So I think the first thing to realize is there's an over complexity, and there's too many levels of abstraction that slow down the process and makes it hard for large businesses like the federal government to actually do what they need to do. So instead of just applying the patch, which should have taken 10 seconds, they were probably doing something else, with security. And I don't know what that is, but it was, obviously the wrong thing. Those level of abstractions are dangerous. I'll give you an example. I heard, it sounds like a joke, but it's actually a true story. When the U.S. Army decided to increase security a few years ago, they decided to increase security, and they gave it a metric because just like the Army, they have to give metrics to everything. So they decided to increase it by 30% or more. And so what they decided to do is increase all their passwords from 6 letters to 8 letters, which is 30% longer. Now, it's ridiculous. It has no effect. It has zero effect on anybody's security. It does look like 30%. It's something you can explain on a PowerPoint slide to someone who doesn't understand security. That's the one benefit. But it kind of goes to show that a lot of them are just doing the wrong thing. I'm a libertarian myself, so I've got a lot of my theories of why it's being done, but putting, as you said, the politics aside, I think there is one very big problem, which is just the priorities. What are they doing? Are they doing things for show? Is it security theater to show that they've done something, or are they really focusing on the wrong thing? Now, there's another part to it, and this are the nation state attacks. The Russia, the China, the very targeted attacks. Those are very hard to block. That's not the WannaCry. Those are the Clinton emails and some of the other things. Those are difficult. We don't have an easy solution for it, but we don't have an easy solution for other types of attacks as well. So it's possible that at some point we'll have to say, these things happen. Stuff happens. You have terrorists taking a bus and ramming it into pedestrian on the street. That happens. We'd like to prevent it, but it will keep on happening. And you will have cybersecurity attacks on our federal government, and we need to figure out how do we minimize the impact, maybe, and how do we not put 50 million records on a server, because we have to assume that the server will get hacked at some point.
Yeah, and I think that would kind of branch us off into another really good conversation. Avi, I'll be honest with you, we're just about out of time here in the first half hour. It has flown by. Would you mind staying over into the second half hour and continuing this conversation?
I'll be happy to.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, when we come back, and yeah, we have about 30 seconds here, but would you mind kind of touching on the future of cybersecurity? Because like you said, what we have now is kind of very reactionary. It's very kind of, well, what was the damage? How did they do it? You patch that problem, but then, how effective is a patch? And, just like you said with the NHS and the WannaCry, even if you do figure out how to stop a problem, not everyone is going to take advantage of said solution. So when we come back, Avi, we're going to touch on the future of cybersecurity as you see it. So everyone else, music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more Computer America just after this. And by the way, again, head on over to computeramerica.com, where we have a link in the show notes directly to our guest website and more, of course, articles and things like that, and contests besides. And be sure, again, to check out beyondsecurity.com for, for our guest website. So we'll be right back, Computer America, just after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show, 31 minutes past the hour as we continue on with our guest here today. And we have, let me get this right here, Mr. Avi Jenik here with us. He is the CEO of Beyond Security, and they have a whole host of products that you can check out at their website for, penetration testing and, tons and tons of tools for network monitoring and things like that. But we're having a very interesting conversation right now about kind of the future of cybersecurity, because Avi, like you kind of mentioned, there are things that are easy to protect against that are not being taken advantage of. And then at the same time, there are much harder, much more, transient ways of getting into places that you shouldn't, that, you really can't protect against. So what is the future of cybersecurity? Is it all about mitigation rather than prevention, or where do you see all this going?
Well, I think we're heading into really fascinating times. So there's a couple of things that are probably going to take place that'll make security more interesting and I guess more challenging. And I'm not sure it's because of the technology per se. The first thing is security is going to get a lot more personal. So right now, when you think about a hacker going to your computer, maybe you're thinking about someone stealing your emails, crashing your phone, something like that. You'd rather not have that happen to you, but that's about it. And if you're a small business, pretty much the worst that can happen to you is a shutdown for a couple of days, right? Or maybe you lose your data. It's a big deal, but it's money and inconvenience. It's all it is. But imagine in the near future when your refrigerator is a computer and your car is a computer, and everything around you and your light bulbs are computerized, and your front door is a computer. Mm-hmm. That becomes a personal issue. I mean, would you like to open your refrigerator and find out that everything was spoiled? Or that a hacker came in and used Amazon Dash to order 10 gallons of milk.
Just real quick, I really like that example, because one of the first examples that we kind of use here on the show of the future that you're talking about was a couple of years ago. Like, I can't believe it was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. A hotel had a wine cellar that was, computer controlled. So for temperature, humidity, things like that. And they never considered putting a password or any kind of security. They just wanted to be able to monitor and control, $150,000 worth of wine that was, being stored there. And hackers got into it. They cranked up the temperature, cranked up the humidity, ruined the entire storeroom before anyone noticed. I mean, the examples that you're talking about happen in the real world.
Exactly, and we're not really far from the day where a hacker will hack your thermostat and just make it really, really hot, in your room where you sit. And you're going to take it personally. It's not going to be about money. It's not going to be about inconvenience. It's going to be about your health, your life, because we've all heard about the hacking into cars, and when it's an autonomous car, that's even more so. So number one, it is going to be a lot more personal, and that means cybersecurity is obviously going to be a lot more important, but it's going to shift the way we think about it, because of it's going to be more like how we think about doctors or health or vitamins and sunscreen, more than
Right.
computers and mobile phones. And the second thing is the Internet of Things, and a lot of people are talking about that. There is, in the computer world, as we all know, the computer world just develops a little bit chaotically, right? It takes certain directions. It's not centrally managed. And one of those directions is the Internet of Things. Those are, tiny little devices that are everywhere. And they're not built with security in mind. And they're not easy to update. So if the solution for WannaCry was a patch from Microsoft, when all the light bulbs in the world are hacked because of some vulnerability, how are we going to patch those things? We're going to be in darkness for a while.
Right. And I mean, again, just to draw another comparison, there was just last year, like or early last year, I believe it was like the largest DDoS attack, but it was perpetrated by a botnet that was comprised mainly of and sorry for anyone out there
webcams.
That I lost.
Webcams.
Right, of webcams.
Right.
And it was a manufacturer in China who made, essentially all the webcams, and the passwords, they were weak, they were generic, or in some cases no passwords whatsoever. They patched it, but they said, only, 10% of our 1 billion webcams are even connected to, the internet to even receive updates. I mean,
right.
They just stay vulnerable.
Exactly. So that's going to be, so I don't know how that's going to be resolved. And fortunately for our business, for what we do, we leave the solutions to other people. We'll focus on identify these problems and hopefully let you know before the hack happens.
Right.
So that you can take the measures. But it is going to be very interesting. And as you said, it's already happening. So it's not distant future at all.
Yeah, you keep mentioning, it's not going to be too long until, and we have, places where admittedly, they're large organizations, it's, isolated incidents, but, that's only because the technology is only in isolated places at this moment. In the future, who knows? So, why don't we talk about motivation real quick? I mean, why do you feel people do this? Is this a sort of game? Is this monetary reimbursement? I mean, why do hackers kind of, create ransomware? Why do they create viruses to do these kinds of things?
Well, so I think by now everybody knows about the two types of hackers: the white hats and the black hats. But the first thing to understand is most of the attacks that happen today are done by black hats for nothing but for money, basically. They're done for money. So it's a business now. It's an industry, hacking, and everybody has the romantic notion of this Mr. Robot, the lonely hacker that's sitting there and doing stuff. But most of the attacks are people wanting to make money, and it's just underground. They used to go around with knives and take your wallet, and now they're putting ransomware on your machine and taking your money that way. But there is still a group of people that are looking for security holes, that are the white hat hackers, I guess, and people like us, which kind of look at things and say, well, how can I break it? How can I get around it? Because it is a challenge. It's an interesting challenge. Sometimes because that's just how we think, that's how our mind works, or because we kind of like the challenge. They actually have stable jobs, a lot of these people. So most of the large companies actually will employ, Microsoft and Cisco and Tesla, and all these companies will employ these white hat hackers and say, hey, go and try to break our system, hack into it, tell us how you did it. So there's a lot of those as well. You don't hear about them that much because those are not the ones that go around and doing all those things you've mentioned.
I maybe we do too much news here on the show because everything you mentioned, there are news stories where it does happen. There was a gentleman who sat on I think it was like a JetBlue or an American Airlines flight and was able to hack in and see it was either like network traffic or get into some of the basic plane environmental controls or something like that through the entertainment system that is provided to any person there. And he let the airline know, how he did it, and that they were vulnerable. And then they turned around and sued him for hacking their planes, and they took a bat to him because, he went to the public with it. He went to the press. But I mean, there is that kind of flip side of it. Do you think the future for companies is, just kind of some kind of blanket bug finding bounty program? Well,
so that's the incident you mentioned is a really interesting one, and it does happen. I mean that that case was extreme because I think if I remember correctly, he tweeted it while he was on the airplane. He tweeted what he was doing in real time, and I think the FBI was waiting for him when he landed or something like that. So those things do happen. There's another incident from a little bit longer ago where a hacker was exposing a security hole in Adobe Acrobat, and they had him arrested at a security conference for hacking their software. So there are some extreme cases. They happen less and less, and I would like to see them go away because. This guy should have gotten a medal, right? For saying, thank you for finding the security flaw that could have been used by the bad guys, and thank you for telling us about it for free without us asking, right? So the whole idea of security bounties is becoming more and more popular, and I am really happy to see that. I mean, as you mentioned, we've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I can really see the difference between reporting a security hole to a product vendor in 1999 versus doing it today. It's a lot easier today, but it's not easy enough. So I think there should be a lot more awareness about what's the difference between the bad guys and the good guys. As I said, the bad guys are doing it for money. So the bad guys are not going to call you and say, "Hey, I found a problem in your system." They're going to extort you, immediately, right away. And I would like to see more education, in that direction, in telling companies, hey, if somebody's calling you and saying and pointing out that you've got a security flaw, you should thank them, not the other
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
And you obviously have started doing this for a couple of years now, but let's face it, the next generation or even the generation after of cybersecurity professionals, they're going to come into a world that's more complicated, has more technology that they need to focus on. I mean, what kind of, for our listeners, what would you kind of recommend for getting into cybersecurity? Because there's a lot of different fields. It's not just cybersecurity, blanket career. You can actually specialize in a lot of different, parts of it.
You're absolutely right. So the first thing I would recommend for someone who wants to go into cybersecurity is to do it. So to not plan hard. One thing that I think is a huge mistake that a lot of people do is going to the university to study cybersecurity or take a course in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity moves fast. It moves so quick that if you're starting university today and you graduate in 3 or 4 years, by the time you graduate, our cybersecurity landscape is going to be totally different.
Right.
Learning this formally probably doesn't make sense. So what I would suggest is going and practice and do something. And people sometimes ask me, what field should I go into, or what problems need solution, or what should I do? And you know what? It's an ocean. There's so many things to do. If you throw a stone in any direction, you'll hit something that's it's a huge problem and needs improvement. And there's so many of those things happening. I mean, we haven't fixed the passwords. You know, there's still a problem, and patching is a problem, and viruses are a problem, and email is a problem, and you know, we can sit here all day and create this really long laundry list of problems. And there's going to be more problems in the future because, you know, we've talked about IoT, and you gave, you know, all the examples of the new devices that come out with security holes. So if you do want to go into the cybersecurity world, just pick a card, just pick any card and start practicing, start doing it. The big advantage someone going to cybersecurity has today is, number one, there's so much demand that it's very easy to get a job doing cybersecurity, and learning while doing is probably going to be, you know, the best thing for anybody who wants to do it.
Right.
And the second thing is you can probably not go wrong. There's probably no direction which is going to dry off. There's probably no thing that we're going to say, you know, that's not important, or hey, we solved that problem, you know, let's go do something else. It's probably not going to happen. So you know, go in, do something, practice. Another thing that's really good for someone doing it in 2017 versus, you know, in the 1990s is there's so many things you can be a part of. You can be a part of an open source project, you know, security project. You can do online practice, hacking into sites. So when we were trying to, you know, hone our skills, hacking into sites in the 90s, we kind of had a problem. We couldn't really do it. If you want to do it, if you wanted to do it today, you've got special sites that allow you to hack into them. There's a site called Hack This Site, which is intended for people to try and hack it. There's bounty programs. So companies will pay you money to go and try to hack their systems, and they'll pay you if you find, you know, a security flaw. And there's just so many other things you can do. There's almost no excuse not to go into cybersecurity and start doing stuff. And there's a lot of things. I literally cannot recommend a specific direction because there's just so many of them. And in my spare time, I'm an investor in startups, and obviously I have a preference for cybersecurity startups if I can. And I see so many amazing and innovative cybersecurity startups doing things I've never would have imagined. And that just shows me what kind of potential is out there for more stuff.
Very, very well said. And I definitely like how you mentioned that, you know, formal education, the idea of the 4-year college, it doesn't really make sense. That's kind of what I found. Of course, you know, still pursued the computer science degree, but at the same time, you know, little things like certifications that cost $100 instead of, you know, $8,000 tuition.
Right.
You know, in some cases, certifications matter more than a degree. It's just, you know, how do you apply yourself and what do you really pursue? So very, very good advice and very, very well said. So, yeah, and I guess we have one more question here. We might have already covered it. I mean, we mentioned patching. The idea that you have a product, you have a vulnerability, and you have a fix for it, but then you need to patch it, and you need people to download, install the patch. Windows 10, by the way, Microsoft took a very hard line stance to patches. It's if you are on any part, you know, other than business, which has like a 6 months lag time or something like that, you have to patch. This was new. It had a lot of there was a lot of uproar about the idea that you know, if you don't patch, you can't use our operating system. But from a security standpoint, it kind of made, you know, it was kind of the only move they could have made because, you know, they're so big. You know, they're 90% of the, you know, the personal computer market.
Right.
Patch or, you know, GTFO, like that. That's kind of it. So. You know, does patching work, and what, you know, how effective is patching in general?
So, you know, I'd like to tie this question to kind of where we started. So, you know, the surprising thing for many people to understand is yes, there are a lot of security problems out there, but the solutions are really simple once you've identified the problem. So if we all look at security and we say, wow, it's so complicated, and we all talked, we talked almost an hour about all the different things and how complex this issue is. But on the other hand, with that said, if you give me a computer, I can give you the list of issues, specific problems on those computers, and I can give you very, very easy and simple ways to fix it. Because once we know the exact problem, we will have a very exact, very simple, very specific solution for it. And patching is one solution that's probably the most frequent solution to these problems. A patch is basically something the software vendor gives you to fix the flaw that's there. Right. So once you fix the flaw, so if you give me, even if it's a complex system like Windows, I can tell you, here are the 10 problems that are there. And once you know the problems, you'll go to the Microsoft websites and you'll download the 10 patches which fixes those problems, and you'll know that you're done. You're done with with these things. And it's hard for people to understand, but it is that easy. I mean, when you're a huge organization, it becomes complicated because how can you patch 10,000 servers? Right. There's another question of how often should I check, right? Because these patches come out frequently, and that is true, but still the process is well defined and it does work. So to test your system, see where your flaws are, and then once you've done that, you'll find pretty simple solutions for them.
And I am wholly going to assume that you would recommend, of course, Beyond Security for tools to do that testing precisely. So, yeah, and Avi, I think that's a good place to kind of end the conversation. Sorry that we kind of held you over for another half hour, but this is very interesting. If people want to find out more about, about Beyond Security and the services that you provide, where can they go?
Yeah, www.beyondsecurity.com has everything we have to offer. There is we do have a free scan available, especially for small businesses. So if you're a small business, you have a website, you can go to scanmyserver.com. It's a free service. There's no strings attached. It is the same big engine that we sell to the Fortune 1000s for hundreds of thousands of dollars is available to smaller businesses that are kind of online businesses, so they can do that as well. And we'll be happy to answer any questions and guide you through the process.
All right. No, very, very well said. And we'll actually throw in Scan My Server in the show notes as well, now that you mentioned it. And yeah, so again, thank you for the information. There was a lot there, but at the same time, I think we, kind of broke it down to pretty simple terms. This was a lot of fun. So Avi, please, feel free to come back when you have a new product or something new happens. You seem very knowledgeable in the field about this kind of thing. So yeah, feel free to come on back to Computer America. Love to have you back on.
I'd love to. Thanks very much for the offer.
All right, thank you so much. And everyone, once again, this has obviously been Beyond Security, Mr. Avi Jenik, and yeah, find more at computeramerica.com in the show notes. So Avi, until next time, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. Bye. All right, and there he goes. So everyone, you can check that out again at beyondsecurity.com or in the show notes. So without wasting too much time, we have computer and technology news to do. And this is the part of the show where we kind of go in and find the best news stories of the day, the biggest news stories of the day. And right now, though, we only have time for a few. There will be more than sufficient amount in the, in the show notes, because we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we're going to try to get to a few here. And why don't we start with this one? Oh, actually, Computer Technology News brought to you by Computer America. So our first story is this one, and it made a pretty big splash because after E3, and you wouldn't think it really would. I mean, it's one of those things that after E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, where they show off the latest games, the greatest games, the most powerful consoles. Microsoft just showed off the Xbox One, the Microsoft Xbox One X or something like that, and you think, oh wow, super powered is the way to go and newest of the new. Well, everyone, this is making a lot of buzz that the mini Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic launches in September for $80. This coming to us from The Verge, and yeah, it's just what you think. The SNES, or the SNES Classic, Nintendo has just revealed it, and it is a standalone mini console, and by mini, it fits in the palm of your hand, not like the old one. And it will feature 21 games already included. So it has a little hard drive, it has games that you can play on it. And they include games such as Super Mario, Earthbound, Super Mario Kart, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, and most surprising is Star Fox 2, which was the unreleased sequel to the original Star Fox for the SNES, making a lot of buzz. So they said that it will launch on September 29th. That is when it will be available for about $80. But like anything Nintendo does, to be fair, to get out ahead of this, Nintendo does not make a lot of consoles. Just like the Wii U, just like the Nintendo 3DS, just like a lot of, or the Nintendo Switch even, they make pretty conservative first batches, and then they try to fill the order as steadily as possible. So they don't go in and make way more, and and my point is, they're not going to have any of these consoles sitting on the shelves. It's probably going to be a few months, even beyond this date, that you're finally going to be able to get your hands on one. Or if you want to pay exorbitant prices on things like eBay, well, that's probably your secret in. And they have, for anyone out there who wants to take a look, you can go check out the show notes, but they have a full list of the games, including things like Final Fantasy III, Kirby Superstar, Mega Man X, Star Fox 2, Super Mario Kart, Super Metroid, Yoshi's Island. Some pretty good titles. So $80, making a lot of buzz, and something you should definitely know about. All right, so we have time for just one more quick story, and how about we do this one? This was the other big news, and Avis, you know them, they're the car rental company. Well, they have just penned a deal with Waymo. Waymo being the self-driving autonomous car initiative by Google, and by Alphabet, and yeah, it's the spin-off company of their self-driving car initiative. Well, they've just partnered with Avis to be the exclusive provider, maybe. Yeah, and by the way, it's Avis Budget and Zipcar. All three are owned by Avis Budget Group. But they've struck a non-exclusive deal with Waymo to manage its growing fleet of self-driving minivans, where Avis will clean and tend to Waymo's vehicles, providing services like oil changes, but won't tinker with any of the self-driving hardware. What this means for you as the end user, saying that this partnership may be the way that you get self-driving cars into people's lives. And that's, instead of having people pay for them up front, have them managed by Waymo, have them managed by Avis, and then you just get to use them whenever your heart desires. Maybe a good way to get self-driving cars onto the road before people are willing to pay those exorbitant prices for it.
60 seconds.
That's all we have. Music means that we are just about done here. Everyone, thank you for joining us here on the program. And be sure to tune in tomorrow as we check the calendar. And tomorrow on the show, we have Sweepstakes Today. That's right. And we have Mr. Sweepy himself, Mr. Craig Daniel, joining us to talk all about what they do there, how you can, of course, enter for many contests. He's done it himself. He's a professional. And how you can, make a lot of money and kind of in your spare time. It's fun. Enter contest. Check it out tomorrow. Everyone, Computer America signing out. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Ten seconds.